So we'll start out, we'll just introduce ourselves.
I'm Amanda Clausen. I'm the Learning Design Librarian here at University Libraries.
And I'm Emily Roman. I'm having trouble with my scarf. And I'm an Information Literacy Librarian here at the Team Paternal Libraries. And what Amanda and I had in mind for the session today was less so a presentation on our part, but really more of facilitation of a discussion with everybody that's here about the topic of how to create academically rigorous multimedia assignments. So just to give you a little bit of background and context for the discussion, we had some things in mind, but we don't want to monopolize the half hour that we have with us talking. We'd really like it to be a group discussion. We, and as well as some of the other librarians, have co-taught a session with Ryan Wetzel called Scholarly Storytelling, and this is aimed at faculty and instructors for ways that they can create multimedia assignments for their classes, and really the idea of sort of transforming the research paper into something of a multimedia assignment. And so that's sort of our background for this discussion. But we wanted to start out by asking you guys, like, how would you define the concept of scholarly storytelling? Like, what that would, maybe we can write these on the whiteboard or something like that. But like, are there words that you would associate with that, maybe not even having the background of creating this type of assignment or being familiar with these types of assignments? We just sort of wanted to brainstorm a list or some ideas that you have about what you think of when you think of scholarly storytelling. So does anybody have anything that they want to?
I guess that comes to mind.
Video?
Video.
Start writing things on the board since they've set up in the room, kind of.
It just sounds like what the History Channel was supposed to be, as far as I know.
Okay.
It's a story and it's true, so I guess that has to be.
References. That's a good analogy, is the History Channel. I like that. References.
Well, History Channel, what I thought.
Well,
it was
yeah, it's
supposed
like,
to be.
right. It's changed instead of the aliens guy.
Right. No, not, no,
Or
it's
just gonna
like
reach out
pawn
and say that
shop
about
people or something.
Okay. Was there any references? Right. Okay. What else you got?
I guess bringing out the truth, but in a colorful way.
Okay. Anything else?
Right along with that, bringing the truth through like metaphor and analogy,
Okay.
visually.
I can already see a theme with truth and sort of history and sort of facts in a way, but with that idea of creativity or multimedia or something like that on top of it. So that's an interesting thing to.
I've been working with Lauren for my Ag 150 class that we're teaching, and it's an environmental section because we're environmental resource management. And we haven't had the digital storytelling yet, but the class is actually going to come here to Media Commons and take the class. But what I used was a concept map when they came to the library, so that they were able to put, we broke them up into groups, and they were able to put what area, whether it was air quality or water quality, in the center of the concept map, and be able to branch out from there and kind of tell a story, so they have something to go by when they actually put together the video, something to kind of follow, in that regard.
Concept map. Amanda has a lot of experience with concept mapping. Right? Yeah, I'm creating a tutorial for it.
Well, that's what you're drawing on the board.
Yeah, exactly. All I have to do is add this.
I think the voice of the storyteller is important as well, like from their perspective or their vantage point.
Right. So, okay.
There you go. Now we're drawing the lines.
Because everybody's would be different, and of course you want the student to provide that. This thing's really ruining my. Anything else we're missing so far in this? Of course, we can add to it as we go along. think it's a really good start.
Change colors if we have to.
We change colors if we have. Okay. I forgot to do this, but can you guys do really quick introductions just so we know what background you're from, so maybe just your name and what you do or what department you're from?
My name is Bruce Whaler. I teach at Penn College.
Tim Robinson, I teach here at University Park, Energy and the Environment, and I also work with the Media Commons.
I'm Tammy Bennett, Environmental Resource Management. I teach a first-year seminar and academic advisor.
Jody Herman. I work at Penn State Erie College, and I am an educational technology trainer.
I'm Keisha Morant-Williams, and I am a Communication Arts and Sciences professor at Penn State Berks.
Okay.
Pete Warren, multimedia specialist and videographer with World Campus.
Oh, we have quite a variety.
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys could all make it to our session. So where we thought we might go from here is, what do you want to do? Do you want to talk a little bit about the assignments and things like that we've worked with?
Yeah, sure. We can do that. This is kind of this is something that we're sort of building towards doing more regularly. It's not something that happens all the time. Obviously, a lot of classes are still doing papers, which is fine. But more and more regularly, they're starting to integrate a multimedia component to what they're doing. So I've only been here at Penn State for a few months. I came from Bucks County Community College, where we did something actually very similar. Yeah, you're familiar with that? Yeah, we did something. They had a very similar sort of program, much smaller, obviously. But some of the assignments that I would oftentimes they would use this type of project to kind of try to convince people of different ideas. The assignments would be very, very like trying to sell a point, which is obviously one way you can do it, but it doesn't have to be the only way. There's been some assignments here too that we've done. Right now, English 137H has an assignment where they describe a I can never say the word. Paradigm. Yes, a paradigm shift. And they start out the assignment doing a paper describing it, and then the next step after they've done that is to create a TED Talk where they use elements of scholarly storytelling to describe the shift that they're talking about. Notice I skipped the word because I've forgotten how to say it already. Yeah, so it can be integrated. It can be a standalone assignment, or it can also be the next step after someone has done a paper. Do you have any good examples?
The other example we have isn't one that Amanda and I have worked with directly, but some of the other librarians here have, and this is a nutrition class. And I think there's a breakout session on this specifically. But they do a public service announcement or a PSA related to some type of nutrition topic, and they've done this for a couple years now. And so that's another one that works with both the library to integrate that research component, because PSA should be based on some facts, we would hope, and some good information, and then of course they're getting the technique and that sort of thing from the media comments. So that's another example, and if you're going to that breakout, they'll talk about that in a lot more detail. One thing that sort of trips people up in our experience so far in seeing these scholarly storytelling workshops is instructors aren't sure how to grade them, because it's not something that's relatively new, and they may be somewhat unfamiliar with it. And so I did bring an example, and I imagine we'll talk about this in the other breakout. This is the scoring rubric for that PSA assignment, so I'm going to pass that around just so you get a sense of sort of what's possible. I also have the actual assignment here. But those are just two examples of how we've been seeing scholarly storytelling translated into new types of assignments. This English 137H and the nutrition class. But what we wanted to kind of move on to today, and this is really what we wanted to kind of focus on in the workshop, is workshopping ideas that you might have that you bring from your particular field or discipline of how you can translate a traditional assignment into something that's scholarly storytelling or a multimedia assignment. So we thought we could maybe just brainstorm ideas of assignments that you're familiar with or have in your head or have come across and how we might transform them into something of a multimedia assignment. So that's kind of where we wanted to go today. So does anybody have an example they want to offer up of something, you know, like a traditional assignment that we could workshop together and sort of transform into something of a multimedia assignment? Yes. Any good candidates?
Sounds like some of you are already sort of doing it, so.
I think for me, it's more of a way to expand it, because in my health communication class this semester, I work with Carla, and we have been doing interviews. So like we'll talk about a topic in class, and then we have they'll now have an assignment where they need to go out and interview someone and ask questions connected to that particular health topic. And then the next class, we bring that in and talk about how, with the folks that they interviewed, how their messages then connect to the content, you know, the course content or to the scholarly research in the area. And so where I'm at now is trying to figure out for next semester, I teach it, like this is 200 level, next semester for 400 level, and how can I do something else or something more significant? Because the students are doing it, but it's still kind of disconnected, if that makes sense. And so like for their first one, it was an assignment that they just did outside of class. So I said, okay, well, let's change things around. We had a normal session on Thursday, and then on Tuesday as a class, I said, we're going to go out on campus and we're going to find people to know about this, to try to merge it some way, but it feels extremely disjointed, and trying to figure out how to make them see this as an integral part of the learning process rather than a separate assignment on top of everything. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
And that is, I mean, that is a difficult thing to do, to really integrate it and make sure it's sort of seamless or streamlined with the rest of what you're doing and not this like separate other thing. So can you repeat again, like sort of what the objective of the assignment is? Like
it's basically to do the whole connecting theory with real world application. And so if we talk about, like I gave them a bunch of different health communication theories in the beginning, and then we've shifted. So say last week we talked about college student health, and so they read a few scholarly articles about that. We had discussions about it, and then they had to go interview college students about college student health. And then when we came back together as a group, we discussed, what were the commonalities or similarities between what the folks that they interviewed said versus what we read. What were some differences? So were there certain assumptions or generalizations that we can make across, the board, or was this still case by case? So it's more like that right now. And so the objective is really just for them to be able to take the course content and see how this applies in real life. But, and some of them have grabbed a hold of it and they love it, and others are just like,
Can I just write a paper?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's part of it too, is that they absolutely, I'd say about half of them would just much rather write the paper and turn it in.
Interesting. So does anybody have any thoughts about how we can take this assignment and sort of expand it a little bit more, integrate it with the concepts of the class a little bit more? Any thoughts? So it's maybe taking it from just, a set of interviews to something a little more synthesized, integral with some of the topics you're talking about.
Now, are these interviews, are they like just writing down, or are they actually
So they're
recording
using
them?
the iPods.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm part of that project. So they're interviewing them, and then we have like the Facebook page that's connected. So they have to go on and they have to post about their experience in using the iPods for the interviews, like the day after. And then Carla set up a YouTube channel, so they have to upload them on there.
Okay.
So I'll show a video in class. Like I watch them all, and then I'll pick one or two and show them in class, and then we use that to frame the discussion.
Okay.
There are services that will generate a searchable transcript for any video that gives you like the text transcript that'll also jump to that part of the video when it's highlighted. Maybe something like that, getting them involved in putting it together, or looking across the videos.
It's gonna be interesting, especially looking across. Yeah.
So using transcripts and using that to, like, you can almost do like maybe a word cloud then from the transcript, see what words like you know appear quite often in maybe these interviews, like you know they all have in common this sort of word. Here's this computer just
Disable on a logo.
Yeah. Yes. I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
So that's an interesting idea.
I was thinking about VoiceThread. I don't know if you know VoiceThread or if you used it.
I haven't used it. I know what it is, but I haven't used it.
Does everybody know what VoiceThread is?
Not sure.
Are you able to explain it?
Basically, it's a software system that will allow you to allow a lot of different people to collaborate on one thought or one concept. So you can, you know, an instructor might bring up one, like she had, what was last week's?
College student health.
Yeah, college student health. And then students can enroll into the VoiceThread. They can either leave a video of what was their findings, or they can actually write their comment down, so you can read, you can do just audio, or you can watch video. And then as the students are going in and doing this, it kind of ends up, the middle screen is your main player, and then around it you have everybody's pictures, and you can click on them individually and play exactly what they left, whether it was a message or whether they left their voice recording. And
So there's a number limit on the participants of that?
I'll try and pull one up here in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll help you. But that is a really interesting idea.
It sounds like that would make it more about the concept
Exactly.
than about, you know, oh, this is my individual interview. And
Because that's what happens where it gets tough, because obviously you can't go through all of the interviews in a class period. So a lot of the perspectives or voices are lost because,
Right.
you know, I get to see them all, but I can't share them.
Right. And so it'd be something they can do, not in class, but as an assignment or something like that. Almost a little bit of that flipping the classroom idea. And then, you know, in class, you maybe talk about the concepts that kind of bubble up to the top or something like that that are the most important. That's really interesting.
it also encourages different organizational techniques, is forcing them to think about their.
Well, they're taking on the editor work.
Yeah.
She's serving them.
We actually, in the first year seminar class, used Angel, more rudimentary than VoiceThread, but just with a threaded discussion to kind of flesh out who wanted which topic and allow them to kind of speak on the different environmental issues. And then I printed them all off and took them home, you know, and kind of sorted through who talked about what the most, and then decided as the instructor how I would divide the groups up to do the group project. That seemed to work out well. And ironically enough, not all the students knew how to use iMovie or were technologically inclined, so it worked out really good. I asked them en route to one of the field trips, who's had experience, you know, raise your hand with iMovie or technology. And it seemed to work out that there was one person in each group that did.
Oh, nice.
That was lucky.
So lucky.
Yeah.
So we were able to divide them up that way. But
What would you have done if you didn't have that kind of arrangement?
I would have found, Lauren is helping me in our Egg Communication Commons do the actual iMovie. And then the librarians, last week we were here with Helen working on the environmental issues, so they got pretty far with that. So it's going to allow more time to try to figure out, you know, the iMovie aspect of it and the digital storytelling workshop that we'll be here doing. So Lauren's helping me. Would have had enlisted, I think, more help from you all, whether the librarians or people who have experience. Yeah.
So the iMovies get made here in the library?
Well,
I'm trying to be.
Oh, no, you're fine.
No.
You're fine. This is what this is for.
well, actually, we're going to utilize the Media Commons in our college. Ag Science has a Media Commons in ASI, over in the ASI building. So that's where my students are going to go.
Basically, though, you can create a video using either Windows Movie Maker or iMovie is installed on every Mac. Like it's standard software, and Windows Movie Maker is installed on every PC. And students have access to this lab. There's a big lab over in 140 with iMovie. You have Media Commons in the Ag Science building. Basically, there are a lot of different places they can create things. Here, if they decide to use iMovie here, there is support for that. But when it comes down to it, using iMovie is not that much different than using PowerPoint. So if you're teaching a class and you tell them you're going to do a video project, and they get scared, which happens all the time, especially if you're working with non-traditional students, making that comparison often can sort of help them to relax, because it really is, you have sort of like the same sort of thing where you're putting down slides. It just so happens that the slides are a lot more dynamic than in a PowerPoint where it's just static. And you can also add music, but it's just usually like the music is like a bar, and you can sort of make it longer or shorter, and you can add different music and different sound points. So
yeah, since you raised that, I wanted to mention our colleague Elisa Cahoy did some research with this nutrition class, and one of the #1 fears that those students had going into that video project, I mean, not anything about copyright or finding the resources, it was about how to use iMovie. So we tend to think of digital natives as just knowing how to do this stuff. It's really not true.
Yeah, that's definitely been my experience with
Yeah.
projects we've worked on. They don't necessarily know how to do it.
They might be comfortable with it on a way that maybe we aren't, but it doesn't mean they inherently know how to work it.
As consumers of video, they're
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
As producers, different story. I have a question for you, back to the original. The original thing, and you have people that are like, no, I don't want to do this, can I just write a paper? What's the trepidation, what's the fear?
I think it came back to there was absolutely a divide in the class, and those that were very comfortable with iMovie or with the technology, and those that weren't. And the ones that weren't certainly were like, oh my goodness, can I just write a paper?
Right.
And to be honest, I think what made it more challenging in the beginning was that I'm not an I person. Like I'm just beginning to, like I just got this like a month ago, and that was the first time I had ever used an iPod was in the summer when I went to a media conference training. So I think I had similar fears and didn't necessarily know how to direct them, but I was very transparent in that we'll learn this together. And so when Carla came in, she taught an entire class, and she brought the iPods and went through all of the steps with him. And so for the most part, I was comfortable after that. And for the handful of students that still weren't, once that happened, it was exactly as you described. The students that were extremely comfortable with it, I just took about 20 minutes out of that class period and said, okay, can you come up and, and let's show each other and make sure everyone's on the same page. So I think that'll be better going forward, but it just was a matter of, I don't know how to do this, and on top of all of my other work, you expect me to learn this.
You don't think it was that they were too shy to find a friend to interview on camera?
I mean, at least at Berks, CAS students are generally extremely outgoing and very talkative, so not so much. There are a few life science students in there that perhaps that was it, but I told them, if you can't find someone to interview in this first round, I will find someone for you. So I don't think it was so much that with this group.
I think with the fear of, and at least I found in my experience, people who just want to write a paper, oftentimes a good rubric and really good expectations at the beginning of the class when the assignment is handed out can really help to allay those fears, because sometimes they're worried because they don't know how to use the technology, and also they're like, I'm not a creative person. I don't know how to be creative. And when they realize that it's more about the content, and although points can be awarded for creativity, they're not expecting them to be like Steven Spielberg or like to make WALL-E or something. That can really help them to sort of relax. And then in the end, they end up being more creative and taking more risks because they understand what their expectations are. And that's something, a good rubric is something that, sometimes it takes a couple goes to make one that really works, because you have to see what doesn't work first. But
we're getting the signal that we have to switch it up. So it was fast. Thank you all for coming. If you wanted to check out VoiceThread, if you just Google PSU VoiceThread, there's a whole media commons page dedicated. Yeah, you can take a look. There's faculty testimonials. It's a really nice site. So,
And keep in mind that the librarians and the Media Commons are both very willing to work with you to create assignments like this. This is something that we're really trying to work towards. So we can sit down with you and look at your assignment and how we can make it more
Pretty much
media
everything from me.
thank you guys.